I hosted a masquerade. And at that time, in particular, the DragonCon crowd was fairly notorious for being extremely rowdy. And I came out wearing a Sherlock Holmes outfit. And I informed the crowd that they needed to turn off their cell phones. I suddenly now checked. Anyway, I'll tell you a good cell phone story later as part of DragonCon. What the hell was that? Tink, is that you? Oh, my daughter loved that show. So at any rate, I was at a Sherlock Holmes outfit, and I informed the audience, and I said, in a faux British accent, I said, there will be no, I said, unlike previous years, there will be no shouting, there will be no lampooning of the contestants, there will be no snide remarks, and no rude comments. That is my job. I will be the designated wise ass for this masquerade. About 5 contestants in, I got tested. Out comes this guy. 6.5 foot tall, black guy. The only reason I mentioned he was black was because he was wearing a blonde wig. So, and a floral print bikini. And go-go boots with heels about that high. He comes out, yeah, kind of like that. There you go. And he comes out and proceeds to gyrate to some disco thing. Now, this is the kind of guy that in previous years, the audience sort of booed off the stage. And he comes out, and the audience is immediately making rumbling, and I'm watching the guy. And the guy's over here, right? I'm never taking my eyes off the guy. And I just go, and I hear the rumbling from the audience, and I go, just stand there like this. I don't budge. The audience basically says, all right, we'll see. We'll see what David does. The guy manages to get through his whole routine, which was my point, to get him through it. He goes through the whole routine, and he gyrates off stage. I'm standing like this. I have not moved at all. And I stand there for something like 30 seconds. Not moving, not saying a word. Now, some of you are old enough, I'm trying to remember Jack Benny. The quintessential Jack Benny moment. Your money or your life? Dead silence. Dead silence. Well, I'm thinking it over. Right? It was the dead silence that caused the same thing here. I'm just standing there like this. And the laughter starts to rise and get louder. Now understand, I have no freaking clue what I'm going to say. None. I got nothing. But it's dead silence. And then finally, I slowly turn to the audience and I say the first thing that comes into my head, I say, what the hell? They're gone. The audience is gone. It wasn't a particularly funny line. It was just me expressing incredulity, and I did not know what else to say. But the dead silence built it up to such a thing that I could have said anything and killed them. But to this day, people will start to murmur, you know, what the hell was that? And I would have said it a couple of times in last night's business. Yeah, the lizard guys who apparently have not heard of jock straps. Right. Good Lord. My audio is going, what? Yeah, I'm going to be explaining stuff. There was, okay, this, is anyone filming this? No, good, because this is kind of personal. Okay? Charlton Heston was supposed to be the guest, and he canceled. And I was emceeing the masquerade that year. So I decided to go with it. And I made myself a Moses costume. And the announcers go, and now, ladies and gentlemen, you thought he canceled. a last-minute change, and we are thrilled to present to you, reenacting his greatest role, Charlton Heston. I come out dressed as Moses. The audience doesn't know whether to kill me or just laugh hysterically. And I stood there, and my daughter Gwen, who was about 7 or 8 at the time, was dressed as a little Egyptian girl. And I said, "You doubt I am who I say I am? Very well. I will now perform a miracle." And I held my staff like this, and I had a staff. I said, "Everyone to the left is going to go like this. Everyone to the right is going to go like this. On my command, now!" Now, to the audience's credit, they could have left me out to dry. They split. And I said, "Behold the power of the MC! I have parted the audience!" Actually, a few years ago, some of you may have actually seen this. George Perez and I were hosting, and Caroline was there wearing her Astrid costume to be our bodyguard. Astrid from How to Train the Dragon. And we said, she's here to protect us if anybody gives us problems. And about 15 contestants in, out comes a guy dressed as a dragon. Huge head on a huge neck, eyes glowing, and he makes a tactical blunder. He moves toward George and me and roars. Caroline is throbbing with energy. And I went, "Get him, Astrid." She's got a shield, she's got a battle axe. Now, it's made of foam rubber, but the dragon guy doesn't know that. And she comes at him, and the dragon guy's going, "Oh, holy crap." Because this is a completely berserk 8-year-old with a battle axe. And he's got a very impressive but ultimately fragile costume. If she comes into contact with this thing, she could whack its head off with little to no difficulty, because she is no quarter being asked or given. She's out for blood. She's been waiting for like 45 minutes for her cue, and this is it. And he is backing up with the head trying to counter, and she's going like this. The head's going like that. And I'm going like, "My God, she's going to kill the costume." and so I said, like, "Okay, Astrid, that's enough. You showed him who's boss." And she's like bouncing back. Yeah, don't mess with my daddy. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Yesterday was actually fun. Yesterday, my wife. How many people, if anyone, saw the puppet slam yesterday? I tried. Yeah. Okay. That's 1 or 2 people. We did a sketch in which Kathleen had Muppets of all 11 doctors. Oh. It was her, and it was like 6 puppeteers. And what happens is that the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith, which is Kathleen with Muppet, is standing there, and there's a sign that says Time Lord Reunion. And he's sitting there very bummed out. Do you want me to do the sketch for you?
Please.
Oh, because I still have it. No, I don't have the puppets. Yeah, all. Hold on a second. No, yes, I have 11 Muppets in my case. And if anyone wants to join in, feel free. Okay? So here's the Lonely Matt Smith Muppet. And then all of a sudden you hear a sound effect of the TARDIS arriving. Right? It'll, and as all of a sudden the previous 10 incarnations of the Doctor come in, here is what I am singing from backstage over the mic. Whoa, for a Lord of Time. Whoa, for turn from time and space. I might have a somewhat different face. Don't start debating. I've been off regenerating. That only happens for a lord of time. I fight my enemies again. Master Daleks, all the Cybermen. It won't surprise me when they do not recognize me. That is a hazard for a lord of time. One. For the lord of time. For a lord of time. Be it body 1095 or 2. Inside I'm still Doctor You Know Who. When change is urgent, I don't call some plastic surgeon. No one does a face job like a lord of time. When I opt to trade in some parts, I say to myself, hold on to your heart. Each time I seem younger than before. If this keeps up much more, I'll wind up wearing Pampers. Know where all the time has gone. Seems my show goes on and on and on. Unlike EastEnders, except I wear suspenders. I just get off on being Lord of Time. Year in, year out, years without end. I've traveled alone, go for it, sometimes with a friend. Donna, Martha, Tyler, and Pond, into the great beyond, and it's more than I hoped for. Don't know how much longer I will last. Maybe someday my time will have passed. Until that day comes, I'll keep on dodging ray guns and go on living as a lord of time. And that was basically the sketch. This is interesting. We all have to sign releases because apparently a show called The Nerdist, which is on BBC America, was filming the puppet. The Puppet Slam, the first half hour or so. And we all signed these things, and something occurs to me, but I don't say anything to Kathleen because I figure she's got enough to worry about. But after we do the routine, I said, you know, The Nerdist runs on BBC America. This was a Doctor Who sketch. You realize they will very likely run this sketch on The Nerdist. And she kind of goes, and I said, that didn't occur to you? And she says, well, not before! So now I'm really glad I didn't say anything to her. Okay. If anyone else has any DragonCon memories that they want to toss at me. Oh, when I did the cabaret with Harlan Ellison.
How about that little batch game with about how, and when we got to film, and that's when we had
Oh, well, that was, yeah. Okay, thank you. I wanted to go, the one panel I wanted to go see was James Randi's speech, which got filled up and I didn't get to go in. End of story. It's not really so much a memory, it's just an annoying thing that happened this weekend. But thank you for that, dear. I feel so much better now. Okay. So tell you what. Okay, now it's 4:50. It's 11:15. Holy. Yeah, it's really. Okay, so let me bring you up to speed on things that I'm working on. If we have time, I also have some stuff I can do a reading from for you. And we'll just take it from there. Now, we have to be done by 5 o'clock, I assume? Okay, nods the man slowly. All right. So, projects that I'm working on right now. Well, not right this second. Okay, first off, I've become extensively involved with a project called After Earth. That is a feature film that's going to be coming out in June of 2013. It's going to star Will Smith and Jaden Smith. And what happened was that Overbrook had a script. They developed a script internally about a point 1,000 years in the future. I know it's always 1,000, right? In which Earth had become so toxic that humanity was essentially had to get the hell out of town. It's now 1,000 years in the future, and humanity has resettled on a new world called Nova Prime, and that's where humanity is now. A horrible happenstance occurs in which a space flight, in which Will and Jaden's characters are on the ship. The ship crash lands on a hostile, angry, and poisonous world, which we would call Earth. This is not like, I'm not giving a major reveal. I mean, to say, my God, we're on Earth, and they say that about half an hour into the film. So, you know, there's no surprise it's Earth, there's no Statue of Liberty, which would have been cool, but at any rate. So, and it's about their fight for survival. And the thing is that Overbrook does nothing in half measures. They didn't want this to be, they want to really build this into an entire universe, right? Something that they could have books, they could have, you know, a TV series, you know, just actually create a world from the ground up. But not do it in a half-assed way as has happened so often when people just come up with a television show and then they have to build it, and all of a sudden you have a myriad contradictions, and you've got the producers assuring you that they have this all planned out and they know exactly what they're doing, and it becomes pretty evident to you pretty quickly that they have no end game, that they have no real concept. I can do the coughing thing too. Even to some degree, Star Trek. I mean, really, you know, when they first began, Gene said, "Well, okay, this is the way the world's going to be, and there's not going to be any racial history. There's not going to be any racial antagonism anywhere." Right, because every time that Dr. McCoy was making nasty racial epithets at Mr. Spock, we know that we all love everybody. Sure. I mean, really, you know, you pointy-eared hobgoblin. Yeah, that's great. And if he called Mr. Zulu, you slanty-eyed gook, I think we'd have heard about it. But hey, call Mrs. Spock a pointy-eared hobgoblin, well, that's okay. He's an alien, so it's all right to hate aliens. At any rate, so they wanted to avoid that. They wanted to have a universe that was coherent, had a thorough backstory that made sense, and that we could do stories set anywhere at that 1,000-year period of time. And I mentioned the story before, I won't go into detail, but I have a working relationship with a guy named Caleb Pinkett, who is Will's brother-in-law. Okay? Will is big into hiring family. You know, fine. Caleb contacted me about creating the universe. He said, "I want you to get a couple of writers." And I said, "Got it. I'll get Bob Greenberger and Mike Friedman, with whom I've done a lot of work before." We created this massive Bible, 300 pages long. They still talk about it. It's a monster. And I mean, Mike Friedman particularly loves doing really involved backstories. So the first year that's mentioned in our overview is 10 million BC. So this sucker goes back. And we created this world. And then we started doing, and then they did a publishing deal with Random House that's going to be publishing 6 novellas online, a prequel novel, and a novelization of the film. I'm writing the novelization. Bob, Mike, and I are writing the prequel novel, and the 3 of us are writing the novellas. So since we know all this stuff cold, it's all going to be coherent. And for people who follow all the aspects of the After Earth universe, there will be these little Easter eggs all over the place. Now, slightly funny story. They were shooting down in Philadelphia, and I got a call from Caleb that Will wanted to talk to me about some ideas he had for another project that I can't actually go into detail. But he said, you want to come on down? And I said, do you mind if I bring Bob and Mike so they can meet the man, you know, and see the movie being filmed? I mean, I've been on movie sets before. To me, it's not that big a deal. But Bob and Mike were like really rapt about the idea. So we all drive down to Philadelphia, and we get to where they're shooting After Earth. And Caleb says, Will's waiting in his trailer for you. And, you know, Bob and Mike can't do anything. I went, okay, fine. So I go to the trailer, which is bigger than my first apartment, and I walk in, and Will is hiding in a corner. And I walk in, and Will comes up behind me and goes, "Ah!" Okay, should you ever happen to mention him, should you ever happen to see him, I do not scream like a girl. That was, in fact, a high-pitched kung fu shout of warning. And the fact that I was clutching my chest like this was to prevent my heart from leaping out and strangling him. And he's laughing his ass off, and I'm going, "Really? Really? You get paid like $10 billion a movie, and this is how you entertain yourself? Jumping out at middle-aged Jews? Really?" Will is freaking demented. I have a photograph in my phone. I'll show it to you. Anyone who wants to come up late afterwards. Will he had a makeup scar on his face. So he was in like street clothes, but he still had the makeup scar on. He came up with the notion of he wanted to have a photograph taken, which I dutifully took, of him hanging on Bob and Mike's shoulders with his head slumped to one side, because he thought it would be funny to have a picture of two white guys going, "Hey honey, look who we're bringing home. Some black guy we beat up in the street." And Will's like, his idea, the guy's nuts. And anyway, like I said, I'll pull up the picture on the phone later and you can see it. It's just almost the same thing. So we're having a ball working on that. The movie will be coming out June 7th, I think, of 2013. So everybody run out and get your tickets right now. And I'm thrilled that they are putting this much energy and thought and dedication into building this universe, because they hate that kind of crap where people are clearly, winging it. Because science fiction doesn't really allow for that. First off, it's a realm of ideas, and if the ideas don't hang together, the fans will be all over you, and for good reason. Not just nitpicking, but there is no fiction venue more dependent on suspension of disbelief than science fiction. Nothing that I can. Mysteries, westerns, it's not that big a deal for suspension of disbelief. But with science fiction, you're supposed to create a coherent tapestry. And one little thread goes out of whack, and the whole thing can fall apart. So we are doing everything we can to have it be as coherent a universe as is possible. I mean, it's really no different than when Bill Mooney and I were doing Space Cases back, Nickelodeon back in. Thank you. You three people who saw it. I always want to have this make sense scientific. I mean, this has nothing to do with what I'm working on now, but I still remember. And if I've told this story, I'm sorry. Bill wanted to do an episode in which his description was that the ship, the Krista, by the way, for those who don't know, Space Cases was about a bunch of kids on a long voyage home in outer space. And their two teachers. And one of the characters was an engineering genius on this spaceship, played by Jewel State. Yes, we ripped through time and space and ripped off Joss Whedon 10 years ahead of time. So, at any rate, Bill's idea was the ship is trapped in space. Like the engines are broken down, and it's on a collision course with a comet. And he says, as this burning ball of fire is closing in on them, everyone's dripping sweat and everything, as this giant ball of fire is heading towards them. And I go, comets are balls of ice. And he said, what? I said, they're giant balls of ice. They are, you know how something's a big and flaming? This is the opposite. It's big and really, really cold. And he said, I thought it was on flame. I said, Phil, it's in space where there's no no air. And it's not like the sun where it's a giant, reactor, essentially. It's a ball of ice. And he says, but in Lost in Space, we did this episode, and there's a giant burning comet approaching. I said, Bill, I think it's time to let you know that Lost in Space was not the paragon of scientific accuracy. And we wound up doing the story, but it was a giant ball of ice, and I came up with a bullshit pseudo-scientific reason why everybody was schwitzing up a storm that had nothing to do with the notion that a giant non-existent. And he said to me, well, why does it matter? And I said, it matters because I don't want some third grader failing his basic science test because he saw on space cases that comets are giant balls of flame. That's why.
But is this a ball of ice and then you get colder?
They really shouldn't be radiating through space anyway. I mean, come on. But now I will cop to in After Earth. There's something that basically we can't do a damn thing about it because the movie makers already did, which is that Nova Prime is going to have 2 suns, which drives me totally bug nuts crazy because generally speaking, a star system that has 2 suns cannot support life because generally, if nothing else, the gravity well between the 2 stars is going to crush the planet. Go, you know what? Go scream at George Lucas. What are you going to do? At any rate, so that's there. So don't blame us for that talk. But the books are going to be rock solid, baby. You betcha. Okay, I'm working on that. Another project I'm working on. I was contacted some months ago by a producer friend of mine named David Uslan, who I've known literally since he was my daughter's age. Okay? And David says that he thinks that there is a market for a superhero sitcom that is kind of like the superhero version of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He's already got interest from one particular network. I won't mention who it was, Comedy Central. And I met with one of the producers there because they were looking for a sitcom. And he confirmed that, yes, we're looking for he said, what I would like to see personally is something that's like a superhero version of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And I went, okay, and then I went and watched the show, and I said, okay, I can do that better than this does. And so I wrote a script, and they had started with 50 possible sitcoms, superhero sitcoms. They whittled it from 50 down to 3, of which mine was one of them. And they said, okay, we're going to be getting back to you next week to give our final decision, at which point the head of creative development was fired. They said, we're going to shit can all of them and start over again, at which point I went, oh, how nice. Go screw yourself. I'm not doing this again. And what eventually wound up happening was that I was having dinner, with Stan Lee and the crowd from POW Entertainment up at a convention in Calgary. And Stan is going, Peter! Peter, old friend, I'd like to work with you on something. And, it would be great. And, because we're doing this new channel, Stan Lee's World of Heroes. And I think it would be great if you were part of that. Actually, for Stan Lee, it's starting to sound like the Gilbert Gottfried. Peter! I've actually spoken with Gilbert Gottfried. Very soft-spoken guy. It's all an act. It's all of it. He talks like a normal person when he's being a normal person. But then he goes on and he's like this! At any rate, so Stan is telling me that he would love to work on it. And I said, well, I have a script that would be perfect for it, because what it's going to be an online web channel. I didn't know they did online web channels. Apparently everyone else in the world knew this. I did not know this. And I said, well, this would be perfect for that, to break up into like little webisodes and do this thing. And And he said, well, that would be great. And his assistants say, send that to us. They say, because we're working with a content provider named Boogaroo, which was founded by the guy who used to, Michael Eisner. Okay? And, okay. Funny name, Eisner. Okay. At any rate, and I say, great, and I send it off to him. Unbeknownst to me, David Uslan, the producer, is having meetings with Boogaroo about possible online content. And he says, I have this one great show called Head Cases, which was created by Peter David. The guys at Boogaroo go, oh my God, we love Peter David's work. And so they say, great. So, and they say, send it to us. And David sends it to them. And so basically what happens is one day suddenly Boogaroo is getting hit from all sides by my show. And they're going, well, we should really do this. And I'm expanding it, and at their request, I expanded it to an hour. And we just signed the contract, which I'm really happy about. So the current plan is for the show to go live in January of 2080, January of next year. To go into slightly more detail, the story focuses on a young, cynical, superpowered individual whose name is Ari Cooper, and who goes by the name of Thunderhead. The reason he goes by that name is that he has the power to create ear-blasting sound, right? Just stunning, overpowering sound by slamming his head against hard objects. Now the downside is that he's not invulnerable. The very first time he tried to go into action as Thunderhead, he was too amped up, and he tried to stop a bank robbery. He slammed his head against the pillar so hard, he knocked himself cold. The subsequent video of the burglars, of the robbers, running past him and jumping over his insensate body to get out the front door, naturally went viral on YouTube. And he became an overnight joke. So now he mostly sits around in this bar, hanging out with a couple of C-level friends of his. One of them is named Fong Dong. He is covered with hair, an Asian guy covered with hair, who says that he is a direct descendant of the legendary Monkey King, explaining his vast amount of hair and athleticism. Unfortunately, his main means of combating evil is throwing his poop at them. We're not going to actually show that. Someone goes, oh. The third member of our little trio is a guy named Xander, who is a kind of 40-ish burnout. The reason is that he is clairvoyant. He sees the future. He sees it constantly. He sees it in an unending barrage of visions. In order to deal with this so that he doesn't go completely insane, he is essentially stoned most of the time. So kind of like imagine Reverend Jimmy Gutowski from Taxi, but psychic. So consequently, he does indeed have accurate visions of the future, but deciphering what the hell he's talking about can sometimes be problematic. And into this situation wanders a young would-be heroine named Victoria Quick, Vicky Quick, whose big brother, is Captain Quick, the single most obnoxious hero in the town. And she has come to town because she has heard that Ari is dead. Now, essentially in the very first episode, we explore the classic heroic trope of someone's dead and comes back to life. So in this episode, Ari is believed dead, he comes back to life, and then he has to deal with his Social Security number, his pension benefits, his driver's license, his passport, an insurance scam that Fong Dong put into motion, collecting money off of him after he supposedly died. He has to deal with all this crap that will go on, because when you die, there's a lot of paperwork. And there's not a ton of paperwork that exists for when you come back to life. So he has to deal with all this stuff just from coming back to life. And Vicky comes to town, discovers that he's alive, and she is determined to try and salvage him and make him feel good about being a superhero again. Whereas he is determined to knock some of the incredible joy out of her, and not literally knock out, and get her to be as cynical as he is. And so that's the basic core of it. And one of the things you just want to do is have all kinds of shit going on in the background. That is almost throwaway. First off, I want to get every comic book writer and artist I know to be sitting there. Somewhere in the background. Oh, and one of our best characters, Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Stan's going, the door opens. Afternoon, everybody. Stan! and the bartender says, your usual, Stan? Absolutely. And she hands him 2 drinks. One is labeled largely beer. The other says non-alcoholic. And Stan goes, great power, great responsibility. And there's my favorite thing is, at one point Stan suddenly says, out of nowhere, Excelsior! And the reason he says it is that a superhero walks in whose name is Excelsior. And I'm doing this off the top of my head, so let's see if I remember it. And Stan says, hey, where's my check for this month's rental of that name? And Excelsior says, I'm getting it right off to you in the mail, Stan. And Stan says, oh, that's what you sent last month. And he says, oh, right, don't worry. And he turns to the other guys and he says, honest to God, I was hoping that he would forget. And Stan says, oh, I heard that. You thought that I would forget, but I'll have you know that I have a mind like a steel tarp. And they all go, what? He says, a steel tarp. And they go, Stan, it's steel trap. And he's going, no, it says right there. And we pan over and you see the cue card girl holding Stan's dialogue. And they go, no, and the bartender goes, no, Stan's seat right here. It's steel trap. And he says, well, how am I supposed to read that? I don't have incredible eyesight like Daredevil. And the bartender says, Stan, Daredevil's blind. Then he goes, he is? Well, who remembers? So that should be fun. Let's see. In terms of comics, I'm doing my usual stuff. I'm doing X Factor. Oh, good. Stephen King's Dark Tower. There will be more Fallen Angel. We haven't decided yet when it's going to come out, but it will be coming out. Yay! I don't know if I'm actually supposed to. No, screw it. What are they going to do? Fire me? Yeah, I guess I can tell you about that now, basically, because do me a favor, don't tweet that, okay? Don't put it out on the internet. Too late! And it's been retweeted 93 times. At any rate, so don't put that out there, okay? But I've just got approval on the 5-issue series, which will then be collected as a graphic novel. Yay! Oh, speaking of graphic novels, for those of you who haven't heard this, Walmart is doing a special edition of the Avengers DVD Blu-ray, and it comes packed with an original 100-page Avengers graphic novel written by me. So, if you have not decided which of the 18 different versions of the Avengers Blu-ray DVD pack you're going to get Walmart. And if you have a real opposition to Walmart, Sam's Club has it too. So that's what I'm, okay, oh now the one other thing, which I was going to do a reading from, but I don't know how much time we have, so I'll go to questions and we'll see what we left at the end. Hi, person at the chair. Could you possibly just bring me some water? Is there
Sure.
like a water fountain or that Bob Greenberger, Mike Friedman, Ira Rosenberg, Glenn Howman and I produce books. But we produce them because we're getting incredibly frustrated with the publishers. For instance, I wrote a book that was the first, intended to be a first book in a trilogy, called the Nerve Trilogy. First book came out in 2007 from Core. Second book sat on the editor's desk for 2 years. Not that he read it and had major problems with it. I mean, he never did look at it for 2 years. So here we are in September, not this September, this was like a year or so. And I go up to a convention and I go, look, this book is supposed to be coming out in January. It's September. Is this book going to come out on time? And he laughed at it. I don't do real well with editors laughing in my face about contractual issues. So January comes and goes, and I write to them and I say, hi, you're in violation of contract. I'm giving you the official 6 months notice. You have 6 months to get this book into print, or the book reverts to me. And they offered me money. And I said, those great. And they told me that no other writers with whom they do this have a problem. Oh, yes, they do. They just don't know it yet. And 6 months later, the book was still not out, and I said, okay, this book reverts to me, and by the way, the first book is out of print, not available through any retailer, and you don't even have it on your website. So I want a version of the first book too. And they try to hold the first book hostage with the second. And I said, are you out of your mind? You don't have a second book to hold it hostage to, because the second book has reverted to me. And he said, well, no, it hasn't. I went, yes, it has. It already has in the contract. It's done. It's like trying to hold me hostage by saying you have Barack Obama, locked in a closet, and you're going to hurt him. No, you don't. He's in D.C. You out of your mind. You don't have the book. You have nothing to hold hostage. So they wound up reverting the first book. Crazy Eight put out the first one, and we put out the second one. And now I'm working on the third. But at least it'll come out when I'm done, and not have to wait an additional 2 years or so. And publishing is shrinking in terms of what we'll publish. And the reasons they're coming up for not publishing stuff is becoming increasingly lucrative. I came up with a book called Pulling Up Stakes, mostly because I was sick of vampire books. So my attitude was, this is a book for people who are sick of vampire books. The concept was that there's a young guy, early 20s, whose mother is a vampire hunter, and they live in a community of vampire hunters. He's a vampire hunter. Here's the problem. He's a vampire. If his mother finds out what he really is, she will kill him. Literally. So he has to live this double life of keeping what he is secret from his family and friends. Yes, the subtext is obvious. And that's what the story is about. And then what happens is an out-of-town clan of vampire hunters shows up with his fiancée, who he did not know existed until right then. Neither did his mother. His father, long dead, made a deal with the patriarch of the other clan and arranged the marriage, because they're kind of old-fashioned. And then gave the father a dowry of $100,000. The father has died, the dowry is gone, or missing, they have no idea, so they're in kind of trouble. And that's the basic thrust of the book. It also takes pains to make fun of other vampire books. At one point, the narrator says that so many vampires were just, they hated Twilight so much. There's a top Twilight thing. They say Twilight is filled with such an unmitigated flow of shit then we refer to it as vampirea. So this book was shopped around to various editors. Now they just come back and said, well, we don't like it. Okay. They just said, but the reasons they gave for passing on it were insane. They said, men can't write vampire novels.
What?
So Joss Whedon, Bram Stoker, too bad, boys. What else was I talking? Oh, well, yes. So men can't write them. If you're going to write a vampire novel, you can. The protagonist has to be a young female who falls in love with an actual vampire. Oh, and also, humor doesn't sell. Nobody wants to read anything amusing. And I was kind of going, okay. So we're publishing it ourselves. We're publishing it through Crazy 8 Press. And I am trying something a little different. Because many people claim that people love really, really cheap books. Now, previously, my books have been published. I've been putting it out, $4.99, $5.99, and I'm happy with the sales. But I'm saying, I'm going to try something different. So Pulling Up Stakes, which will be available through Crazy 8 Press, you'll find on Amazon.com and on BarnesandNoble.com. We're going to publish it in 2 halves. That's supposed to be 3 halves. I don't even know. In 2 parts, would be better to say. Each part will be priced at 99 cents. I want to see what happens. Part 1 will be 99, part 2 will be 99. Then after that sales period, we'll combine them into 1 volume, which will be available as a single book and as a paperback for the more regular price of like $4.99 or something like that. But I want to see what happens with the 99 cent. If we sell the same number of unit copies, then I'll go, okay, well, memorabilia, that didn't work. If, on the other hand, sales go through the roof, I'll go, well, then maybe there's something to this. So we'll see what happens. I have 10 minutes at the moment, so it's real simple. If you guys have questions, I'll answer questions. If not, I'll read stuff, but I'm happy to answer questions. Yeah?
I'm curious, when you publish something at 99 cents, are you looking at the dollar store distribution network, or are you still looking at...
No. If you're publishing at 99 cents, it's only as an ebook. We're talking purely ebooks. But I got to tell you, it really breaks me up, because I would be bringing paperback books or whatever to sell, and people would say to me, "Oh no, I only buy books. I only get ebooks now. I've done entirely ebooks." And I'm going, "Okay, well that's interesting. Just buy stuff online, just through Amazon or Barnes and Noble. I never buy stuff. I like the discounts for the actual books. Or I just always buy through these online sources." So we create crazy8press.com, and we're putting the books out as ebooks, right? We're bypassing bookstores and passing the savings on to you. And what do I get? What are the responses I get when I talk about it online? You know, I went to my local Barnes and Noble and I can't find your book. Well, you have to buy it online. Oh no, I only buy books in a bookstore. This is actually kind of similar to, for years people come up to me at dealers' rooms and they would go, do you take charge cards? And I'll go, no, I don't, I'm sorry. They go, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I only have charge cards. I go, okay. Well, they've come out with this wonderful thing called the Square, which you just put it into your iPhone, and you can do it. They take 2.75%, but so what? You know, it's worth it, totally worth it. So now, people come up to me at dealers' rooms, they look at stuff, they go, oh, do you take charge cards? And I go, yes, I do. And they go, oh, okay, I'll be back. And I'm sitting there going, sons of bitches. All these years, I've thought about the sales that I'm missing out on because I don't take charge cards. I wasn't losing out on any sales, or at least for the most part. I was just giving people a graceful way to leave without running out. Now they only have the choice of just running. It's like, dude, if you say I don't want to buy it, that's fine. My feelings won't be hurt. I don't need nice excuses. Oh yes, someone had a, yeah, go ahead.
I saw that you wrote a Spider-Man game.
Yes.
Did you actually
Spider-Man Edge of Time.
Did you play it? Did you get a chance to play through it?
I haven't played it yet. Truth to tell. Spider-Man Edge of Time was a really interesting experience. They brought me up to Canada, where I was essentially locked in a room with 4 or 5 other guys, the guys who run the company, and we essentially hammered out the story. Now the problem was that, you know, we were a little bit constrained in terms of budget as to what we could do, so we couldn't do another one of these free roaming things all over the city. So we essentially decided to do Die Hard, to all intents and purposes. And so essentially I was involved heavily with the plotting, and I wrote the script. And there was stuff in there I put in there just to get pulled out. Yeah, because you always do that. You figure there's going to be stuff that gets attacked, and now you got to take that out. I have a line in there where J. Jonah Jameson is complaining, "I can't believe." God, now it's starting. Now J. Jonah Jameson. Where Jameson is going, "I can't believe that Spider-Man's popularity is growing. The next thing you know, they're going to do a musical about it. A dancing Spider-Man." I never thought that line would get in. I was at a panel to promote the thing. I'm sitting there with Katie Sackhoff, Laura Vandervoort, and Val Kilmer, who I refer to as the 3 most gorgeous blondes in Hollywood. And Val Kilmer, who's got hair down to here, reaches over and starts doing this on my head. Fantastic. And they actually ran the opening sequence on the screen. And Jonah says that. And the audience is falling over, and I'm going, "Oh my God, they used that?" But that was a lot of fun. I started to play it, but then we got to the point where it said written by Peter David, and I said, "Okay, I'm done." Yeah.
I don't know if you can count your output, but what's your words per day?
What's my words per day? Well, it really depends. I mean, if I'm working on a comic book, it's what's my pages per day. Which, if I'm working on comic book script, it's basically 20 pages. I'll write a whole issue of a comic in a day, or in an afternoon, depending upon what. Well, it depends how much action there is. It takes a lot less time to write a fight scene, you know, that kind of thing. It's dialogue heavy, which most every issue of X Factor is. It takes about 4 hours or so. If I'm working on prose, short stories, novel, my ideal is to get around 5,000 words. More often than not, it's like 3,000 to 4,000. But it really depends, because writing, as with anything, it ebbs and flows. If I'm getting started on a novel, or a short story, or pretty much anything, it's like pushing a rock uphill. At some point, though, and that's days where I'll have like 1,000 to 1,500 words, and I'll feel I had a good day, you know, pushing the rock uphill. But the further, the story will inevitably reach a tipping point, at which point the rock takes off, and I am running like mad to try and keep up with it. Those are days where I can do 5,000 words, 6,000, 7,500, because I just sit there, and I'm just pounding away, and I'm running to keep up with it. That's always a great feeling when it's just flowing like that. It's just, you know, it's like, there'll be days where I'll sit there and go, "V, quick, blue, no, brown, fine." And I'll look out, and I'll feel like I've been working on it forever. And I'll look at 5 minutes of that. There'll be other days where I'll be sitting down, and it's like 11 o'clock in the morning, and I start writing, and the next thing I know, my wife is informing me that she's serving dinner. And I'll go, "Why are you serving dinner at 1 o'clock in the afternoon?" And I look, and it's 6:30. And she goes, "Yeah, you were really working, so I didn't even bother you about lunch. I figured if you were hungry, you'd come." And I go, "Oh, yeah, okay, well, thank you for that." We now keep a little stack of protein bars on my face. Okay, 4 minutes. Well, I'm not going to do any reading, so any other questions? Yes?
More Young Justice?
What? More Young Justice. Well, yes. For those of you who don't have Cartoon Network, I've been writing for the Young Justice animated series, which has been a terrific experience. Greg Weisman and Brandon Vietti are just wonderful to work with. I wrote 2 episodes for the first season, and I wrote 2 episodes for the second season. One of them has already aired and featured Impulse, which was a lot of fun. I loved writing Impulse. That was another instance where I put a line in that I was absolutely sure would not get on the air. And I even went to the recording session where they recorded it, and it still got on the air. And I thought, no, someone's going to cut it at some point. Impulse has arrived in modern day, and and they don't believe that he's from the future. Why in God's name they don't? I really don't know. I mean, they live in a world with Superman and the Flash who can travel back and forth. Why this is such a stretch, I don't know. But it's what they wanted, so fine. And Impulse describes himself as a sightseer from the future. And Nightwing says, we're supposed to believe that you're a tourist from the future? And Impulse says, well, why is that so hard to believe? Half the people at Comic-Con are from my time. It explains a lot, doesn't it? What are you knitting? It's a Starfleet blanket or something? It's a Starfleet patch? Yeah, okay. All right, I was just curious. Red, well, you know, bye. Oh, I see. This is the big one. Hold on, guys! It's the big one! Uncover Elizabeth! No. Okay, hold on.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I'm taking applause like I did. Okay. So at any rate, I will have one more episode of Young Justice coming out this season. I have absolutely no freaking clue if there's going to be more Young Justice or not. If I did know, I couldn't tell you. Okay, so sorry. I will tell you that if this is the second and last season of Young Justice, it does, you know, the current storylines get wrapped up. Okay, I mean, nowadays, particularly when you do an animated series, you always have to plan for the notion that you may not get picked up. In which case, you should try and have things as self-contained as possible. Any other questions? Yeah, back there. Hi, can you get out of the room because it's time for us to clear up? No, that's not.
No, I don't actually work for DragonCon.
Oh, fantastic.
I could just tell time. I remember that after a series of spectacularly stupid decisions on the part of someone at Marvel Novelizations, you stopped writing the film novelizations.
Oh, yeah, the movie novelization.
Did anyone approach you for a novelization for the Avengers movie, not just a graphic novel?
Nope.
Okay.
The last time that I got approached for a novelization was Iron Man 2.
Right.
Okay? Now, what happened with that is that, I mean, it used to be that when you got the script for a novelization, why did Dr. Lee just And why was Amy Pond in a hotel in New York City, stark naked in the hallway? I don't know. What was going on? Why wasn't I there? I could swear, yeah, David Tennant Stockton just could run fast. That was weird. At any rate,
Novelizations.
Novelizations, thank you. It used to be that when you would do a novelization, they would send you a screenplay. They'd send it to you. Then they decided for security purposes that they would print your name in big letters on every single page so you couldn't photocopy it, which for a complete egomaniac like me was heaven. Peter David. So then, they've now gotten so paranoid that you have to come into the city where they lock you in a room with the screenplay, and you sit there with your computer, and you essentially do a transcription of it. And it takes the whole day. Now, thank God I type 120 words a minute. But I would sit there from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and bang this thing out constantly. You know the old saying about, I know that's like the back of my hand? Yeah? At the end of the day, I looked at the back of my hand, I went, what the there were all these veins. It was like I was 90 years old. There was this glass work of veins all over my hands. Going, this is not the back of my hand. Whose hands are these? Holy crap. So then Iron Man 2. And they say to me, yeah, you have to come into Marvel Comics and work with the script there. I said, great. They said, and you can't bring a computer. I said, excuse me? They said, no, you have to bring a pad and a pen. I go, you bring a pad and a pen. Are you out of your mind? It would take me at least a week. And I'd have carpal tunnel syndrome. No, they were absolutely 100% serious. I'm, by the way, working on finding the picture of Will and the guy, so it's nothing to ignoring you. Going like, no, these guys are going to crap out of me. I'm going to go. So at any rate, so no, that's why I'm doing this, in case you wonder. At which point I said, you know what? Screw you guys. I'm going home. And I walked out on the contract, and they basically didn't press me on it. They canceled the contract and got some other guy to write it. I don't know how much he needed the money, but boy, it must have been a lot. And since then, they have never done another novelization.